Alright guys, it's a hot day. I'm going to get right into it. We're going to do the first major repair on this car, which is the power steering. Now, I believe that it is the pump and or the reservoir that have gone bad. So I ended up catching up with a buddy who sells out BMW parts for part outs. Got a nice little deal on these, so pick those up real quick. Gotta have power steering fluid. Usually you're supposed to get the specific kind of this car, but for me, I'm just gonna go with the regular right now, because this is just a beta drift car and I don't really need all those full synthetics and things like that, because I'll end up probably having to drain this every once in a while anyways, so it's not like it's gonna be a daily driver. You need at least 2.5 quarts of power steering fluid, ATF, and I got the 5 quart because it just makes it was a little bit cheaper, about $22. So now I'm going to show you the tools you definitely need. So you're going to need a jack stands, drain, an assortment of ratchets. I went with a 1/2 inch and 3/8 assortment, and a 13mm for the pulley. Now I use these to kind of help get the belt on when the tensioner is a little bit hard to do it. That's 22 to turn the crank when you're putting the belt on. Sometimes it makes it a little bit easier to get right in the spot. And then what you do need are some torx bits and external torx bits, or E-torx. So you're going to need an E12. That's going to be the most weird one right here. I got an adapter just in case if I have to use any 3/8 to 1/2 inch. So you're going to also need torx 40. You're going to need a torx 25, 35, and 30. You might as well just have a good assortment of torx together, okay? And you'll need a torx 50 or 60 depending on the model of the car for the tensioner. Alrighty, let's get into it. First thing you want to really do, to be honest, is you're going to want to get this fan shroud out of the way. It's really easy. You just have this one plug here. You might have some other things when you have the air box. So if you have an air box, you have to remove the air box first and then get to this. Since I don't have that and I just have an intake, this is a lot easier for me. I could just remove this. All I have to do is unplug this here. There's a little clip in here. Unclip it, take it out, and pull this thing out. Pretty much it just has a clip that sits in over there and a clip that sits in over there, and just kind of wiggle it around, get these cables out of the way, and you should be fine. Alrighty. Now the next thing we want to do is you're going to want to try to get this pulley off right here. So you're going to get these 3 bolts loose. That way you can sort of crack the pulley after you take the belt off. So we're going to do the pulley first. We're going to get the bolts loose, then we're going to take the belt off. Then we'll take the pulley completely off when the belt's off of it, and then we'll get to the other bolts that hold the power steering. Alrighty, let's go. Usually this would be pretty easy. You would just put the T50 right there on this. This is the tensioner. So usually you would do that, and you would get it at full tight, and the tensioner would go down just enough to get the belt off. But for me, it's kind of a bitch. So what I'm going to actually have to do is I'm going to have to take that off, and that's why you need the that one I believe is a E14. Let's double check real quick. Yeah, so E14 if you need to remove the tensioner. If not, then skip that and just put the T50 or T60 depending on the car on the tensioner, and that should get you going. You should be able to take the belt off. You should be able to tighten righty-tighty to get the tensioner to go down and the belt will come off. But for me, I have to take this off, and I'll be right back and just do that. Again, this is a E14 to take off the tensioner bolt for the tensioner pulley and everything. So yeah, I got to use this E14, remove that bolt, and then the whole belt and tensioner will come off all at once. Alrighty, this is for you guys. T50 right in there, or T60 right in there, righty tighty. If it's really tight, it should be able to go down and be able to get the belt loose. But for me, E14. Remember that just in case you guys run into this issue. So a quick lesson, if you are changing the belt, or if you're not changing the belt, actually if you're not changing the belt, you'll want to know the orientation that the belt was going. So you'll want to have like maybe something, put an arrow, like a marker or some shit like that. For me, I'm not changing the belt and I know exactly where it's going to go, so I don't really need to do that. But for those who are reusing the belt, you have to mark it just in case you take it out of the car. But now tensioner is out, and we're going to pull this pulley out, and then we should get started on getting the pump out. Alright, the pulley's out. It was 3 13mm, and then I took off my little intake. All you gotta do is really just disconnect the, that's kind of funny, there's the Edelbrock. Disconnect the MAF and undo the clip that's holding it in, and use the flathead. It'll be fine. And if the pulley is hard to get off at first, just use a pry bar or something just to kind of get it off. So what you do is you pull the belt off a little bit, you get the pry bar in it a little bit, and just pry it a little bit, turn it a little bit, pry it, and it'll come right off. Alrighty guys, let me get back into it. So the T40s, those go into the bracket holes, so you actually necessarily might not have to take all those off until after you get the pump out. But I basically left one in right here on the top. So there was there was two on this side, and there was 3 on the other side. Now those are all the T40s. The ones you do have to remove are the E14s. So there's an E14 here and an E14 there, and those are the bracket bolts that hold the pump into the block. Those are the ones you're going to remove, and then the pump is going to come out. That's when we have to start getting to the lower power steering, the high pressure line. So we're going to get the car lifted on the jack stands, and then we're going to take that out. I believe it's 22 or 24. So when we get to that, I'll let you know. But you also have to remove these two 10mm to the reservoir, because we're going to take the reservoir out also. So those are going to have to come out, and you have to loosen the line that connects to the pump from the reservoir. So the next thing to do is to lift the car, put it on the jack stands, and get that lower line out, and then we're pretty much almost done. At least in getting it out, and then we'll just have to put the other one back in. Okay, now that you've gotten all the fluid out of the pump by removing that 22mm banjo bolt and removing the clamp right here by using a flathead and pressing out the pushing out the hose with a flathead, making it easier, then there should be some more fluid coming out of there. Now you're back on the reservoir. You loosen up this with a flathead, pull that out, and the reservoir should come completely out. That's the return line. Now you should have gotten the return line off over here, and you just had to remove those last bolts that were holding the pump in that you had loose already. And now your pump is on the floor. See, there's only one left holding the bracket, just in case I need to change the bracket, but I think the other one came with it. And the reservoir's out too, with the line. So if you need to take anything off, you want to take it off now and then put it on the new parts and put it in. And we're gonna go basically reverse order. So let's get the new pump. Alrighty, assuming you've put all the parts from your reservoir and your pump back together, you put the 2 bolts in the pump into the block, tighten them down, the 2 10mm with everything sorted into the reservoir. Now you're ready to connect all the lines, and then put that 22mm banjo bolt. Now what I was talking about earlier is you're gonna have a washer right here, and then you're gonna have a washer. It's gonna go in the banjo, and yeah, it sounds weird, but then another washer goes on top of that. So there'll be this washer, the actual line, another washer, and then you screw it in, and you gotta take, try going left first, leg click, and then righty tighty, because you don't want this thing leaking, and then you end up having to go back under and do it again, because you'll have a bunch of air in your system, and you'll be able to never really be able to get it loose again. It'll go tight as soon as it leaks out some fluid or get some air in there. So you want to make sure you do that right. So we're going to get in there, we're going to put this back onto the line, put all the lines back together, and pretty much everything should be ready to put the belt on and the tensioner on, and the intake and the fan, and that's it. Let's go. Alrighty, power steering pump is in, lines connected, reservoir in, belt on. Now we just got to put the fluid and the intake back on, and we're good to go. We just got to start pumping, and I'll show you exactly the process to do that. So give me just a second. Everything's back in, everything's tight, intake back on, reservoir is filled. We filled it just now. Now we're going to probably have to top it off a couple times. Now the procedure is you're going to have to go all the way right or left. So all the way right, full lock, all the way left, full lock, all the way right, full lock, left, full lock. Now let's check the fluid, see if we gotta top it off. Still a lot of fluid in there, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna start the car. All right, let's start her up. Now we're gonna do it again. Don't worry about the noise, my exhaust shields and all that shit. Everything needs to be taken off. Alright, let's add a little bit more fluid. See if it went down at all. Look at that. Going down just a little bit, not a lot. Alright guys, the moment of truth. Now I already drove it, but we're gonna drive it again. Check the fluid levels, make sure we top them off. And we should be good to go. My nice little nifty cup holder here. Key inside. Let's turn that AC on because it's hot as fuck. Now we're gonna check the fluid again. You always want to do this after you take it for a drive to make sure it didn't have a leak, because it may not be apparent at first, but it will be after. She was spitting something just a second ago. Must be from when we turned on the AC. Oh well. Let's check the power steering fluid. Fluid is full. Alright, let's prove that the power steering is good. Turn smooth. That one hand shift, you know what I'm saying? I still gotta get used to this clutch. No effort. Now we obviously have other things we gotta take care of, like the e-brake. We gotta take care of doing the coilovers. But she moving. Fourth gear. Woo! Ooh, and she revving good. You know, she's driving fine. AC and everything pumping good. Replace this steering wheel too. I gotta rip this shit out. Man, it can't be much. Honestly, it's the easiest thing to do. But we're one step closer. Power steering was the biggest issue, and I wanted to take care of that first. And look, she's driving good. Alignment's a little bit off. Tires and everything need to be changed, but we'll get there as we get closer and closer to drift area. Okay? Thank you. Come again.